welcome to the video. If you're new here, this is going on. I am Lex, and today we are discussing the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, or Imola. And yeah, it was very, very chaotic this year for some reason, and you'll just have to keep watching to find out. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button if you please, and turn on all notifications so you know when I upload. And yeah, this is the first of a triple header, so make sure you subscribe and turn on all notifications so you can see Monaco and Spain rundowns. Either way, I love you all. Roll the intro. I'm going back. I'm trying to film this way where it's like connected to my computer, and so let's just hope it all works out because a lot of the times it glitches and it makes me very angry. But besides that, let's do the ceremonious Red Bull opening. That was a good one today. It was very crisp. Okay, like I said, it was chaos for some reason. But yes, this track has a lot of history. I feel like this is the Enzo Idino Autodromo Internazionale. I said that so wrong because it's in Italian, but is the Ferrari ring, and it's like Ferrari's home circuit. And yeah, it is very, very beautiful and important to F1 history. Where the hell are my notes? There they are. Okay. Let me do one check and I'll come back to y'all. Okay, like I said, this is a very important track, and let's go over the stats and then we'll go over some history. So, this gorgeous track was built in 1980, and that's where it held its first Grand Prix. It actually may have been built before that. I lied. It held its first Formula One Grand Prix in 1980. Let me clarify. There are 63 laps in the Grand Prix. It is 4.909 kilometers long. In total, after the race, it is 309.049 kilometers in total. The lap record is held by Lewis Hamilton in 2020 with a 115.484. There are a total of 19 turns, and this is one of the tracks where it is each corner has a name, and Monaco is this way too, and I'm not even going to attempt to say the names because it's hard, frankly. So I'll put it on the screen. And yeah, in 1994, this is the track where Ayrton Senna passed away. He got into a fatal accident, which ultimately led to his death. And yeah, it's very sad. Senna was and is a staple in Formula One. It's the shirt I'm wearing right now. He was a Brazilian driver, and ultimately his death was a loss to everyone in the Formula One community. And yeah, last year for the 30th anniversary, Sebastian Vettel held a walk of the track for him, and it was just really sweet. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think last year I did cry when I did see that. I will be completely honest with you. So take that as you will. But yeah, it's very sad, and I hope that Senna is happy wherever he is. Fully just spilled that in my lap. Lovely. For this track, it is the softest of the tire range, that being the C6, C5, and C4. And this is a very thin track because it is designed for, well, when it was originally designed, cars were much thinner, and now they're quite large. But it's a very thin track, which comes into play a lot during the weekend. So, in free practice 1. So, actually, side note, on press day, on Thursday, Kimi Antonelli brought his entire class to the paddock. So, can one of my classmates become a Formula One driver? Because, yeah, I don't get to do anything fun like that. What do you mean? Either way, thought I should mention that. So, in free practice 1, if you were here for the last rundown, or if you have been kind of keeping up with F1 news, you know that Jack Doohan for Alpine was replaced for 5 races by Franco Colapinto, who replaced Logan Sargent last season. See the connections? But this is his first race back in the Alpine car, and my favorite part was the presenters literally saying, like, it's so stupid. Like, it's like they literally called the switch nonsense because 5 races, yes, it is defining of a driver, but it isn't really, you know? Like, I would say probably 7 is when you could start to think to replace, which hence why this is I mean, I don't know, really. I don't know. I'm not enough on uh, team principals, so either way. This track also, there is a lot of elevation, and so when you're going up to turn, so I'm forgetting. I'll put the elevation on the screen because I forget, but it does. The elevation also comes into play. Okay. Due to that, Charles is talking about his car lifting in turn 1, and when he is, my brain is not working. His helmet is like sucking his head. I mean, really, I don't know. Either way, Yuki has the old front wing for what? Yuki has the old Red Bull front wing while Max is wearing the new wing, and they seem to be performing about the same. It does seem like Max was doing better, but also that could just be a driver thing, not a car thing. So, Sainz and Leclerc, there was a graphic, and if you don't know the Carlos lore or C2 lore, Carlos Sainz Jr. and Charles Leclerc were teammates at Ferrari for 4 years, 3 years. And their bromance is one of my favorite things in the entire world. And I cried at Abu Dhabi because on February 1st, 2024, 2024, it was announced that they were dropping Carlos Sainz for Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari, which is quite ironic when you think about how this weekend went. But either way, Alex Albon goes into the runoff, Charles onto the gravel and on softs, which is, softs are soft and they're a thinner rubber, like they're just thinner thickness, and it's just really bad to go on any gravel with it, or even when there's marbles or like rolled and like used rubber on the track. It's just not great for the car. It's not great for not the car, for the tires. It's just not great all around. Either way, clearly my brain is really functioning right now. Alex goes off again, and right before the pit on turn 18, yellow flag because Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber went into a wall, which then caused a red, which ended the session. He went off on turn 18, and he really just kind of overcorrected, and yeah. In free, I'll put the results of free practice 1 on the screen. In free practice 2, Lewis was snapping his Ferrari through the car, or through the track. It was something. The Ferraris, they weren't doing great this weekend, which is quite sad since they are at their home race, so. But we'll get into that later. The Red Bull and the McLarens obviously were looking very good this weekend. Good. Fernando almost rear-ends Franco Colapinto because, okay, so Franco was on the racing line, but he was going slower than even like an out lap, which is like a first lap. He was kind of just like moseying his way along, and Fernando had to take some defensive action to get away from him. I also don't like my hair right now, so I'm gonna fix it and come back to y'all. Okay, 1 second. I don't love how my hair looks, but we'll just have to cope, and you guys get to see my knee. Like I was saying, Fernando had to take some defensive action to get around Franco. Lewis was having a lot of understeer, which means that your car won't turn. Oversteer means your car turns too much. Understeer means your car doesn't turn enough. Either way, Russell is the first to go on softs. Oscar Piastri is just gliding on the curbs. Kimi Antonelli goes onto the grass. Max bottoms out, or the floor of his car is against the gravel on turn 12. And then he also reports that there's something like hitting his left foot in his like cockpit. Maybe it's like last Grand Prix where Lando had like wrenches in his cockpit. I don't really know. But Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bull goes into the runoff on between turns 2 and 3, which caused a yellow and then a red, which ended the session. He just had too much speed and spun, and it was not good. He made it to the edge of the track, but he just couldn't get out, and he was beached, and thus the end of the session. And I'll put the graphic of the what? I'll put the ending results on the screen. There we go. Um, in FP3 or Free Practice 3, it was a sea of red because, like I said, this is the Ferrari home race. This is the Ferrari race. Um, so it was a sea of red in the crowd, and Isaac Hadjar, the one who just had gotten into the accident, was P1 over Ferrari on the same tires on mediums. Yeah. Fernando has to swerve around Charles. Then there was a yellow because Liam Lawson in the Racing Bull goes off the road but kept it going, thankfully. Not like he did the same thing that his teammate Isaac did, but thankfully he kept it going. Charles goes onto the curb and he just seems to have jumped it. And when I say jumped it, like say this is the curb, his car goes not good for the floor of your car. No bueno. Lewis misses the first apex of the Ragazu. You would think after hearing them say it all weekend I would know how to say it, but no. He just misses the first apex and then misses the second apex, and it was just not great, but he was fine. And then I said there were going to be so many track limits, which really there didn't end up being. I don't even think there was one, which was shocking. And the reason I said that was because a lot of the times when the drivers were coming out of turns, they were going onto the curb and they were having all four wheels off out of the white line, which means track limits, and typically would result in a 5-second penalty if you were in a race, or if you're in quali, it just gets your time deleted. Either way. And then Lando goes into the gravel, and I believe it was at Tosa, but I'm not fully sure. And in qualifying, we start the session off with a yellow turned red because Yuki Tsunoda has a giant crash. Like, I'm talking like Zhou at Silverstone 2021, or 2022. It was large. He's okay, thank God. It was at Villeneuve. He went on the curb and I'll put it in, but he went on the curb and he spins and he just, I mean, y'all see, it's terrible. He was okay, thankfully. And I thought it was really sweet how all of the drivers were like, is Yuki okay? Yeah. But if you don't know what happened in 2021, it's either 2021 or 2022. I forget. But Zhou Guanyu, who is now the Ferrari reserve driver, but he raced for Alfa Romeo turned Sauber for 2 years. He had a gnarly crash at Silverstone, and I'll put the clip in now. It was bad. He's okay, thank God. And then the Saubers just barely missed Q2, and it was kind of sad. The Saubers have, I would say Saubers is it the worst? I don't know. That's up for debate, but. And then there was a yellow flag because Franco Colapinto went into the barriers. He went onto the curb and spun, hit into the tire wall, and it was just not great. And, okay, so basically, this next event, I'm Ollie, Oliver Berman, in the Has, and I'm driving up to the checkered line to start a push lap, to set a time. And literally by 1 second, he misses out, and it broke my heart a bit. I'll be completely honest with you. It broke my heart. But yeah. In Q2, Lando barely squeezes past Max's time. Albon takes a little dip in the gravel. Sainz is in the purple, and I had someone ask me this. Okay, if you have a purple sector, that means that is best out of everyone. If you have a green sector, that means it is you better than your best. Better or like the same. And if you have a yellow, it's worse. Okay. But Sainz goes purple in a sector, which then led to him going fastest, which was chef's kiss to see. And then Carlos's brothers, I think his name is Carlos as well. Carlos's brother's reaction was taking me out because he was like, he turned around and he goes, yeah. I don't know. And then both of the Ferraris were taken out of Q2 by none other than the frickin' Aston Martins. Aston Martin is not a bad team. They have a bad car, though. And they have been having a shitty they did great at the beginning of 2023, and then it kind of all just went downhill. But to have the Ferraris be taken out of Q2 by them was truly jaw-dropping. I was like, what do you mean Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso took out them? Also, I firmly believe against the Lance Stroll hate. I get it. He's a Nepo baby. His dad owns Aston Martin. But before his dad owned anything, which obviously Formula One is a sport of money. But before he did anything, he was the youngest rookie to. I believe Lance Stroll was the youngest. Frankly, I'm blanking on his stats, but I just don't get the Lance Stroll hate. I think he's just kind of awkward, and then people interpret that as him being like snobby, when really I think he's just an awkward little guy, and he doesn't know how to interact around people, which I sympathize with because I don't either. You probably hear my bracelet, but that was that. I also realized I don't think I ever switched back to voice isolation. Oh no, I did. Good on me. Either way, both of the Ferraris looked like they were going to cry, and I would too. In Q3, Lando starts the session off by getting a 114.9, and then Oscar comes in with a 114.8, and then Max comes in with a 114.7. It was shocking to me that the Williams and the Aston Martins were both in Q3, which is... it's something. And then Piastri sets provisional pole, and then Max does a purple, yellow, yellow, which, like I said, explains the sectors. And George goes over Lando by, I say 3 over, but I don't know exactly. I think that's 300ths over Lando. And yeah, so I'll put the quality results on the screen. And so it ended up being Oscar, Max, George, Lando, etc. But my favorite part was Oscar pulls into Parc Fermé, and you hear him go on the radio, and he's like, I was gonna lose my shit on the last corner. And I love my honest king. I also strive to be as nonchalant as Oscar Piastri. Bro's getting pole, and he's acting like, I don't, he just could not give less of a gaff. Bro does not give a gaff, and I love him for that. Can't relate. I give too many gaffs. Or too many gaffs. No gaffs, just offs. What am I saying? I'm not sure. Either way. I'll put the ending results of quality / the starting grid on the screen. So, we are now coming up. This race is around the time frame of 75 years of F1, or F1's 75th birthday. Crazy. And this is the first time in Imola history, or Emilia Romagna Grand Prix history, that there was no Ferrari in the top 10. Yeah. And this is also Max Verstappen's 400th Grand Prix, which is quite fitting. So, the race starts. Like I said, Max, I'm not kidding, that was he pulls this overtake off. And what happened was, what's the best way to explain this? Okay. Ready, y'all? We're going to use makeup brushes this time. Okay. Purple is Oscar, Max is silver, and George is black. He's not, but... So I'm Oscar in front, and I'm Max right here. And so off of the starting line, George gets a really good launch. And so he's one wheel ahead of Max, and Max just pulls some speed out of his... and gets in front of George, and he pulls off this beautiful around the outside overtake on Oscar. I'll put it on the screen. Genuinely, chef's kiss. And I thought it was amazing that they didn't accidentally crash each other out, because that has happened several times in the past. The best example I can think of is Spain 2016 with Mercedes. Either way. Hamilton is already down in the ranks. Not great, because Kimi Antonelli overtook him. And then Gasly and Charles, so Pierre Gasly and Charles Leclerc are going into, they're on a straight, or they're like coming off of a straight and into a turn, I'm not sure which one. And Charles is on the outside and Gasly's on the inside. And it kind of seems like Charles pushed Gasly onto the gravel because Charles wasn't in front of him at the turning point of the apex. So it's up for debate. He didn't get a penalty, so it doesn't really matter, but Gasly did go into the gravel, which is not great. Franco Colapinto touches the gravel. Lando was up George's you know what. Fernando was also creeping towards the top 5 with creeping towards them, thus being in DRS. Lando needs to get through now if he even wants a chance of a podium, is what I say, and I was correct because of everything that happens in this race. George, I think he's given up on racing. He's going to be, like, in 20 years, once he's retired from F1, he's going to be an amazing presenter. Because bro's already looking at the screens and giving commentary on things while he's in the car racing at 190 miles an hour. So imagine how great he's going to be when he's not under that pressure and he can just talk into a mic. Either way. Charles pits, because Charles started on softs, I believe, and so he needed to pit quite early on because his tires were dying. Charles pits, Lando pinches the apex, and what I mean by that is when you're going into a turn, like a lot of examples today, we'll use this roller. Say this is the turn that you're going into, and this is, you can kind of see it. This is the turn. These are the 2 cars. This is Lando, this is George. Lando, they're basically going wheel to wheel, and they're going into the turn, and what I mean by Lando pinches the apex is by Lando gets to the apex of the turn first and is able to complete the turn with George being squeezed, but he was fine. And pinching the apex basically means like stealing the apex from the person you're racing against. It's an odd term, kind of, but are any of F1 terms normal? I don't know. And then George pits, and then Williams and a Mercedes pit. Not sure who. Oscar pits. But because of Oscar pitting, like I said, or I didn't say this, now it's Max, Oscar, Lando. Okay? And Max is in front by probably like 3 seconds. And then it's Oscar, and then it's Lando probably like 5 seconds behind. McLaren then has a slow stop because they can't get the right off. And that causes Lando to be able to get in front of Oscar, which may be an issue if you think about it. But if Oscar were to have not had this slow stop, there is a high chance he would have stayed in second. So, sabotage? I don't think so, but it's definitely possible. Either way. And then Fernando Alonso's wheels were on fire. Fernando's pulling out of the pit, and he is like driving along, and it's like fine for like a second, and then his front left catches on fire. It's on fire. And then his front right's like, don't leave me out, King, and is also on fire. Which happens more than you would think, but still, it's just always a shock every time I see it. For this race, they were kind of using Yuki as a block for Max, and they were trying to get Yuki to hold up Oscar Piastri, which didn't happen, but they tried. And but the best thing is that the racing engineer didn't even try to like bullshit Yuki and be like, no, you should hold off Oscar because of X, Y, and Z reasons. He was just like, nah, dog, we're gonna use you as a block. I would appreciate the honesty if I was in the cockpit. But due to Oscar being stuck behind these drivers and him having a fresh set of tires, if you don't know this, it's when you're racing, you don't want to be on cold tires because they have a lot less grip. Because once the rubber is melted a bit, it can stick to the track more. Thus, when you're getting onto a harder set of tires, such as hards, you need one, maybe two warm-up laps. Well, in softs, you probably need one, even half a lap to do it. But at the rate that Oscar's car can drive, at the rate that the McLaren can drive, he needed to heat up his tires as fast as possible, but this couldn't happen because he was behind a bunch of people who were slower than what he is, thus not being good for him. I'm not sure why I over-explained that, but... And then Oscar was driving with his elbows out, meaning he was just driving very defensively, and I feel like it's more interesting when you do that. Lando pit because Albon was 15 seconds behind him, so he had a little wiggle room, but this pit wasn't fully necessary, and obviously McLaren couldn't have foreseen this, but there was then a virtual safety car because Esteban Ocon just has engine failure. He had engine failure? I think Esteban was the one with engine failure. And so he's just like stopped on the grass, which causes a virtual safety car, which all of the drivers just have to drive at 2/3 racing speed, I believe it is. I could be wrong. So if you have a pit stop under a safety car, it's a lot more efficient, and you lose like a quarter of the amount of time you would on a normal like pit stop. And so literally McLaren, like Lando gets out of the pit and then the safety car's called, and it's just like there's also no overtaking under the safety car. Oscar pits again, and Alex is just barely in front of him. So if you don't know, the green flag is waved. Charles is fighting Lance Stroll. DRS is enabled, and it is now like told that Ocon had engine failure. George almost like this close into the back of a Haas. Unsafe release of Charles, which means that he was released from his pit box while there was another driver. I'm not sure the exact amount. I think it's half a car's length in front of him. He was less than that, and he could have hit him. It was just like a whole big thing. Either way. Yuki is pushing Carlos on turn 2. Alex Albon is noted for a yellow flag infringement, but I don't really think it ever turned out to be anything. I haven't heard anything of it. Kimi Antonelli is then pulled onto the grass. Why? We'll get to that in a second. Thus causing a yellow. And the cameraman also, this is happening all at the same time. The cameraman got really close to like the, one of the, what are they called? Pit crew at Ferrari. The side eye bro gave, I would be fearing for my life. Either way, I said the cameraman was going to get punched. Then there is a full safety car. Not good. Because Kimi stopped for some reason, and yeah, full safety car means there's like a real car in, and you all have to be behind the safety car. Either way. Max pits, and then Charles wanted to pit, and his team were like, no, you can't pit. And then he was like, why can't I pit? And they were like, because we said so. And he was like, okay, but why? You get the idea. Oscar gets in front of Lando, and then the McLaren's pit lane was not doing great today. They were having a lot of slow stops. It wasn't really their fault. The car was just kind of off, but not great. And then Lando says this, which he says, I'm not asking for him to let me by, but let's not make this difficult. Meaning, he's not asking Oscar to just like let him pass, but he also doesn't want to crash out his own teammate because, well, yeah. And then safety car's out. So there are 10 laps left, and Max immediately on the throttle. Bro is going. And Oscar's tires are 19 laps old, while Lando's are 4, meaning Lando's are much better and have a lot more grip. So Alex Albon and Charles Leclerc were fighting. Yuki is able to get in front of Hülkenberg, and then Hülkenberg touches the gravel, and then it's Lando v Oscar, and it's just a gorgeous overtake. It was a gorgeous overtake, I'll be honest with you. I also am biased because Lando is my favorite driver, but it was a gorgeous overtake. And then what happened in the overtake was Lando is able to put his nose into the apex of the turn before Oscar is able to, which makes it a lot cleaner. And it was There weren't very many like messy overtakes, thank God, because like sometimes there were some overtakes where you're like, there was no reason to be doing all that. You did that just to be difficult. But thankfully today we didn't have that issue. Alex goes onto the gravel, and that makes him go from fourth to sixth, and it was just kind of sad. And then okay, but then so let's go over some FIA rules, which are they logical? No, but let's talk about them anyways because you have to know them. If you, once again, we're using makeup brushes. These are the two cars. And for a normal overtake, you have to leave at least a half car's length between you and the car you're overtaking. Okay? And in this overtake with Alex and Lewis, I don't think it was Lewis though. It was Alex and Charles. No. This one was with Lewis. Sorry. So this is Alex, this is Lewis. They're both going into the turn, and it's like fine, whatever. But Lewis is able to get, this is before Alex goes on the gravel, Lewis is able to get a wheel in front of Alex, so meaning he doesn't have to give him a half car length. Thus, when Alex goes on the gravel, it wouldn't be considered a like pushing off the track penalty. I don't really understand FIA rules. I don't really think anyone understands them because the FIA doesn't even understand them, and yet here we are. Either way, that was that. And then Charles is told to give the place back to Alex, and Charles is about to crash out. And thus, we were at the end of the race. Mr. Max Verstappen wins the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix for the 4th time in a row. I was happy to see him on there, frankly. I love Oscar, but as a Lando fan, I'm just happy to see anyone but Oscar on the podium. My preferred would be Lando, but if it's not him, I feel like there was this one TikTok that took me out. Because if you don't remember, if you're a really new F1 fan, you probably have never heard of Daniel Ricciardo. Mr. Daniel Ricciardo started his Formula 1 career in like 2000. I have no idea, actually. He's been racing for a long time. And Daniel Ricciardo joins, I believe he joined BMW first and then went to Red Bull. And everyone saw Danny Rick as like this future world champion. And I think most people firmly believed that he would be a Formula 1 championship. What? Formula 1 champion. But in 2015-16, Mr. Max Verstappen joins Red Bull, and it's kind of like everyone forgot about Daniel. But I saw this TikTok saying, it was this picture of Oscar or it's just this picture of Lando, and he's like, everyone, and it like says in quotes, everyone thought I was going to be a world champion until my teammate joined. And then it like swipes, and it's Daniel, and it's like, wait, I think I've seen this film before. And when I tell you, a part of my heart shattered, because I love Daniel Ricciardo. He is, I just love him so much. Yeah, but also, Lando and Daniel were teammates at McLaren for 2 years. And yeah, it just makes me sad. I really didn't need to tell you that, but I felt like I should because I wanted to. So now here we are. But yes, now I'll put the standings on the screen. But yeah, I'm not fully sure what's happening in F1 right now. I have no idea how this championship's going to end. I would feel like it's safe to say, unless Ferrari pulls some major upgrades, Ferrari isn't really in the running for a world champion or a constructors championship. But I mean, they could pull something out of their ass that I don't see. I don't know. But next week it is my favorite Grand Prix. It is Monaco, and Monaco is just gorgeous. It's like, if you don't know, that's where I want to go to college. It's the reason I am taking, I don't know which verb I should use, French right now, and it's just amazing. And Charles Leclerc is either the second or third, like, only Monaco-born driver in all of F1 history, which is crazy. And last year, Charles broke his Monaco curse and won in Monaco, and I cried. I cried. I cried. Especially when you listen to Crofty's like ending speech about it. Sobbed. I sobbed. Either way, I'm very excited. I really have no idea what's going to happen this season. Like, typically, like, when we get to this point, I'm, like, telling you, like, oh, I think they're going to do X, Y, and Z things. I have no idea. So, we'll see. Either way, I love you all. And thank you for listening. And that is everything that happened in the Emilia and Romagna Imola Grand Prix. Monaco's next week, and then it's Spain or Canada. I forget. Either way, I love you all. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button if you please, and turn on all notifications so you don't miss those rundowns. And yeah, let me know if you have thoughts on the race, if you have any suggestions on my commentary, etc. But yeah, I love you all. Make good decisions. Don't do bad things. And roll the outro.